Hello, artists, and welcome to the next episode of the podcast. Just a quick note before the podcast begins. If you are a graduate from an art or creative degree and would like to be featured on the podcast, the details will be found in the description below for you to email me. And all of the details of my guest are also in the description, and there will be timestamps in the comments for what we talk about during the podcast. So I hope this is beneficial to all those watching, and please subscribe to stay in touch for future episodes. Nice to meet you. Afifa, right? Is that how I say your name properly?
Yes, Afifa.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining the podcast. So I guess we'll get started. You finished your degree now. You did your degree in Canada, right?
Yeah. I went to York University. I did a BFA. I just finished 2 months ago. So, really a recent graduate.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a really long program. I did 5 years.
5 years?
Yes, but there's people in the program that did 7 years, and those people I feel bad for.
Oh wow!
I'm just glad I'm done.
So is the average program, are the average kind of degrees or programs in Canada 5 to 7 years then, rather than for example, standard in UK is 3 years, and we have longer degrees like maybe architecture or medicine, which are 5 to 7 years.
It's 4 years.
4 years is standard.
But some people finish later. They just take their time.
Yeah.
They do 2 courses a year, 3 courses a year. They either do part-time or they do full-time, but not all of it. So I did 30 credits, the full course load, the entire 5 years, but I still took longer. So there's really no average, I guess. People just take their time.
I'm curious, because Canada then, what are the fees like in Canada? Because obviously when I think longer course, I just think the stress of managing crazy expensive fees. Are fees kind of as crazy as they are in, I know, for example, I mean, we're paying 9,000 a year in the UK. Even worse if you're an international, student. But if you say that's a lot, then I'm assuming yours are a bit more affordable then.
It's 7,000 a year for art students. It's more for science, obviously. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll get started. You can introduce yourself if you'd like. I guess we could have started with that, and then you can start talking about maybe your experience of the course, the structure of the course, kind of what you got up to. Because my understanding was you did a BA. It was in visual arts and art history. Was it a combination of the two?
Yeah, it's a combination. It's I did a BA actually for 4 years. But then the counselor saw all the studio courses I took. They're why aren't you in BFA? So I switched to BFA. Yeah.
What's the difference? To be honest, I'm kind of ignorant about these. What's the difference between Bachelor of the Arts is BA, right? BFA is, what's BFA?
It's Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Oh, Bachelor of Fine Arts. Oh, okay. Yeah, I should probably know that.
It's more specified.
Because as well, I'm thinking kind of in terms of the actual difference it makes to your qualifications, probably not that much, is it?
Well, in Canada at least, the BFA, I think it's worth more than BA, because the BA is everyone gets a BA in something.
Yeah.
The BFA is more specified. Or it's a BN, Bachelor of Engineering, or a BA. It's just focus on this thing and you should be good at it. That kind of thing.
It's kind of saying I'm slightly more specialized in the arts, basically.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, yeah. I guess that makes sense.
It's a few of us.
So your course, what would you say is, I guess, so you did 5 years. I guess that's a lot to cover, but is there kind of a general structure or an overall kind of way you can put it at first? Maybe just generally describe each year, and then you can go into maybe a little bit more of specifics.
Okay, so first year, I was confused. I'm being honest. I didn't know how I got into the program. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I could not paint. Well, I didn't think I could paint anyway.
Yeah.
I think I sent you one of my paintings. The first one, the one on the easel. It's really colorful and whatnot. that was my last painting of my first semester for first year. It was improvement, I think. People said it looked like Matisse, which I was like, I know that's a big name. I didn't know who she was at the time. I was like, it's probably a big artist. So that kind of pushed me forward. But first semester, I was like really insecure about my skills and all that. But after that, I was just insecure enough. I had a lot of like doubts with myself. Second year, I just kept pushing myself. Like I think I did like 2 sketchbooks a year, every year until 5th year. Because I was like, I know I'm not good. I need to like be honest with myself and just kept pushing myself. By 2nd year, I saw a little bit of improvement. And I had this teacher for 2 years, from 1st year and 2nd year. He was doing a PhD in art. And he saw me working hard. So he just kept coming to me every few minutes, like, okay, the color's a bit wrong here, you need to work on your shading and whatnot. And at first, I wasn't like good with criticism, but I was like, you know what, tell me what's wrong so I can fix it. That's essentially 2 years. The first 2 years were the hardest, I think. By 3rd and 4th year, it was a bit easier. 3rd year, I don't remember much of. I just kind of got into a flow of things. 4th year was thesis year. So that's a whole different story.
Thesis will be as in a lot of kind of writing and whatnots, right?
Yeah, it wasn't really writing really. It's more like making a series in the thesis class and then having like 3 or 4 shows from that one class.
Okay.
So you'd be working on 2 paintings at once in the span of 4 months, and that would be a gallery show, and it's just a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
It was also my first time being in a gallery show, so I was like, I don't know what to do. How should the paintings look? What's the gallery standard? I was confused. But because of that, I applied for more shows my 5th year.
Yeah.
And I applied for a show recently too after school ended. So thesis year actually helped you, all the pressure that you get from finishing all paintings all at once. It helps you later on, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I feel like a general point in life is when you haven't experienced something, right? You're more scared of it. But then once you do it and then you experience it and then you realize it's not as scary as your brain is sometimes telling you it is, or it's not as crazy, even though some things can be obviously ups and downs, as difficulties, positives and negatives with everything. But once you do something, it's kind of like, oh, like it's that wasn't that deep, so let me just do it again.
Exactly.
And I always try and tell myself, like, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, if you didn't put your work in a gallery and ended up somehow burning the gallery down, then it's not that bad, right? So,
yeah, exactly. This is the first time I was scary. First time of university was scary first semester. Yeah. And then first semester was terrifying. But as the things went on, I was just like, you know what, this is normal. At least I'm making progress. And now I'm like, you know what, the fact I'm scared, I'm going to do more because I'm scared.
I think the feeling of kind of insecurity and kind of being a bit unsure of yourself is a very common thing in first year and early on, especially in a young person's career, because I feel like, especially in light of COVID now, this kind of idea of the world being uncertain has been completely opened up now. So I guess we never know what's going to happen when it comes to life and moving forward. But I think to have a positive mindset and just get your head down and work as hard as you can and have a focus and goals towards something is the way to kind of move forward. So I'm interested in, how was your course kind of split up between whether that be kind of visual arts and the art history side of things? Because, for example, one thing I've realized with UK courses is obviously we don't have any kind of traditional lessons. I'd be interested to know if your university had any kind of traditional teaching, or how would you kind of, as you said, your tutor was saying about shading and colors and whatnots, how would you be taught that in your university context? Is it in a formal manner or just advice from the tutors? And then there's the fact of, I'd be interested to learn what's the art history side of things. How did you kind of learn about art history and how did they teach you that?
So essentially every year you have to take at least 2-3 study courses, at least 2 art history courses and electives. That's actually how it's split up. So 2D courses first based on like composition, values, and color theory, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Art 2 was like basically we had one class that was mandatory. It's called art. I think it was art through the ages or art history. I don't know what it was. It's been a long time. But it's a mandatory class for all art majors for the entire faculty. We have a gigantic textbook. I'll show you the textbook right now. It's huge. I don't want to sell it because it's beautiful. But it has medieval art, contemporary art, everything. I'm going to show it to you right now.
There is...
Let me see it.
Let me grab... I don't know if you've... This book, E.H. Gombrich, The Story of Art, is like my go-to when it comes to like art history. Because I feel like art history was something I was always so ignorant on. I feel like it can be quite intimidating
it was.
to anyone who hasn't like really approached it before. But and as well, what I find with a lot of artistic text, particularly, the language can be so heavy and ridiculous sometimes that like when you're reading it, your brain is hurting, and I'm like, and you question whether you can speak English or not. But this is kind of like, for me, this was just so down to earth and covers everything from like the beginning of what we understand as like the origin of art, in like whether it be like the oldest cave paintings that we can kind of date back to whenever, all the way up to kind of contemporary art. So
yeah, that's what this class was. It was started off with medieval art history. So all the architectural art, we went into the Greek and Egyptian, all that kind of stuff, cave paintings. We ended up at like Pollock. It was like 1,000 years in this giant textbook. It was an 8 o'clock class.
Going from cave paintings to Pollock, like it's an interesting kind of thread to follow.
Yeah. I was split into two semesters. First semester was all like early art history. Second semester was contemporary art.
Yeah.
But it was something mandatory that kind of paved the way for it into all the other art history classes.
So
called Art Bureau.
Sorry to interrupt. These are lectures, and then would it be like a combination of lectures, seminars, as in how are they teaching you this content? Because you're following, you said, as you said, kind of like a set structure. Are they presenting it to you through lectures, and then you're having smaller kind of seminars on those lectures, or like smaller classes on those lectures? Is it like a combination of different things, or?
It was a lecture, and we had tutorials. So it was like 200 people in like this lecture. It was like almost all our students in one class.
Yeah.
And split up into like little tutorials, obviously, and like discuss those things further, so you can actually understand what those big words mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. Secondly, we had more like a choice. You want to learn European history. You want to learn. We had Asian art history, but it wasn't like. It was focused most on like East Asia, China, Korea, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not South Asia. I mean, you say Asia, you think of continent. That's why I took these classes.
Yeah.
But the teachers were like East Asian, so I was like, you know what? As long as it's Asia, I'm good.
That was one of your. I remember one of the essays you sent me was about graffiti in Asia, wasn't it? Or China specifically.
It was. I think it was Korea actually.
Was
or
it?
It was China. I don't remember. Because by third and fourth year, it goes more into specific stuff. So, second year it's focused on continents. Third and fourth year it's more specified. So like we had a course I think in fourth year called art crimes.
Yeah.
So So we learned about poetry. We learned about what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? It's when people steal your work, so you can like sue them and stuff.
Copyright and stuff.
Copyright? Yeah, that. We learned about all those laws. There's no laws in that class, but laws that artists need to know that you don't know about, that we let people get away with.
Yeah.
This was like fourth year, so it's like, getting ready to go into the real world almost.
Learning to protect yourself and understand your rights as an artist and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah, so we focused on like artists who were like amazing artists, but then they were stealing other masters' work and selling it as the masters. a documentary, I think, on Netflix all about that. It's easy to find. It's not coming to right now.
I think the thing when it comes to copyright, I think one thing about, because I know that there's like, even in China, for example, there's a big market when it comes to copying masters' work, right? But I know when it comes to copyright runs out after a certain number of years, which is why it's, for example, if you wanted to copy old masters' works and sell them, it's completely legal for you to do so, because the copyright on their work technically doesn't exist anymore. And as well, it's like once you kind of die as an artist, there's a certain time period which your work is kind of protected and no one can kind of copy and use it for commercial purposes, such as making like a Monet Lily t-shirt or something like that. There's a certain number of years you're not allowed to do that. But then once that kind of runs out, then you're good to go. You can basically do whatever you want with their artwork. So one day, if me or you become famous artists, when we're gone from the earth, then they can start stealing after a certain amount of time.
That would be kind of cool though.
To be honest, I'd be honored if once our kind of copyright runs out, if everyone's jumping on your artwork to use it, then you'd be like, okay, I'm a successful artist then. If everyone wants to use my stuff, yeah. If someone wants to put my stuff on a t-shirt, then I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, totally. Where did I stop? Where did I stop? I think I was in 4th year, right? Fifth year I didn't take any art history classes because it was like the end, really.
Yeah.
I was finishing up some courses, but 5th year, there is one important class that we took. It was an art history. It was called professional practices. So we learned about more like copyright stuff and whatnot, and like how to actually get into the art world. So like residencies and how to make a living as an artist. And in that class, we were like reassured, it's okay if you're not successful, if you don't make it, you still tried. We kind of like, these are other resources. This can help you. It's a new class too. It was like 2 years old. This year was the 2nd year. So they're learning they're learning how this new world works now. But
I'm curious. So they actually went through some practical things with you regarding how to kind of maybe create opportunities for yourself, or begin to network and build a career off of, like, was that like applying for funding, residencies, and because I'm not sure, obviously the art scene in Canada,
gallery representation, how to enter a gallery, how to work at a gallery. We have people come in from museums and whatnot talk to us who were previously in the graduate program at York. So that really helped. Seeing that people who actually went to the school, they're working at museums now, and like they're bigger artists now. Wow. It was actually probably the most useful class in all of university, I'm being honest. But what else did we learn? How to get into galleries, how to make yourself be known. So we learned about like social media and stuff. And
I really think social media is the biggest and the most straightforward opportunity for any artist to really make a solid living out of kind of I think it's a long-term kind of game. You need to work out where does your voice fit in the current kind of social media climate. Find your thing, find what you love doing, and then just go all in on it. But also adapt at the same time and realize it's a game of patience and consistency. Like, I feel like a lot of people think that if they start an Instagram and a YouTube account and they do it for like 3 months, then suddenly like that's gonna make them something and they're gonna be like full of it. No, it's like you've got to do this for like, you might have to do this for like the next 10-15 years, but if the next 10-15 years works out and you pull it off, then by the time you're 40, that's it. You can, like, you have a meaningful career. You can live the rest of your last 20 years or however long you want to work for out of doing that. Then at least, you've built something meaningful and you're not depressed in a job that you don't want to be working when you're 40. I don't know. I think it's about perspective and patience, because at the same time, I think practically speaking, obviously, the quicker you make it, the better. But we still probably have to split up our time between things that we might want to do, might not want to do. And just having that balance and perspective of like, okay, you're working towards something in the long term rather than trying to make, I don't know, get fame quickly. Or it's like, I feel like any famous person that you study, we don't, a lot of us don't appreciate how much work goes into a lot of these people's careers, whether that be the obviously mainstream Hollywood stars, or but even if you study kind of a lot of contemporary artists, and the work that goes behind, or the amount of hard work they put in behind their own practice is it's crazy amounts. So
I agree. A lot of people would give up easily, but they don't understand that you have to push through all this. It's like a hurdle.
So I guess let's move on to let's ask the real questions about traditional training, or kind of any kind of practical training. Did it exist in your course? Because it seems like you had some kind of practical advice in regards to maybe networking, building a career, gallery contacts, so on. What about the actual practical skills when it came to your painting? Because I'm assuming, it seems like what you sent me, predominantly you're a painter, as in you're not so much installation or sculpture, you're into painting.
Yeah, it's mostly painting. I just started textiles a few months ago, because that's what I'm focused on. But yeah, training was mostly, first year was color theory, composition. It was just getting the basics right.
So they do actually teach you fundamentals then? Because we don't have any of that in our degree courses.
Yeah, we had a class on, it was a 4-year class on, I forgot what it was called, but we went through all printmaking, painting, all the basics of that, and like I think the painting was 1 semester a year. I'm not entirely sure anymore.
Yeah.
But every few weeks you switch from making to painting to sculpture, just to figure out what you want to focus on. That helped a lot. Other than that, if you already kind of want to know what you want to do, first year is composition, color theory, and the basics, I guess, of art. Sculpture too is you start with cardboard, you move on to metal and woodworking and all the harder stuff, copper and all the metals. Basically.
So you do actually cover the kind of the basics of all the kind of traditional mediums, whether that be like sculpture, printmaking, painting, right? And then did you also cover maybe like some drawing fundamentals too, as you said, like composition, color theory?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Drawing too. We had lab models kind. We had still lifes.
Yeah.
It was a first year class. There's also a first year, second year class on abstract painting, so that was more fun. But even then, we dove deeper into abstract art. It's not that simple. You do abstract art too, right? I got into it later on, second or third year, but it's just going into basics of, okay, abstract's not that simple. You gotta learn the techniques of that, and drawing to still lifes. We had people come in, figures, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that, and it's just the basics of stuff. You had a whole thing on shading and composition, all that stuff. So we were graded on things like that. If it was simple, but your composition was right and your shading was, some people go full on with shading, some people do the lighter part of shading, like minimal shading.
Yeah.
But as long as it worked, it was all about getting that thing right.
Creating just the understanding of creating some kind of form, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, almost achieving likeness, not realism exactly. But first year you start off not doing the best. By second and third year, you grasp some knowledge of what composition is and how to make it look good on paper rather than just in a picture. We had photography classes for that too. So that's when I first met my camera. It was just like, okay, go outside, take pictures, and you kind of critique it. And later on, the second photography class you took, you're better. It was aesthetically pleasing too, not just like a picture, that kind of stuff.
So you kind of, so my understanding is they kind of let you, what's the saying, dip your hand into a bit of everything. So then you get a feel about what you want to kind of specialize in.
Exactly.
And you chose painting as that specialization.
Yeah, I spent so much time in the studio first year, I would stay in the studio till like midnight. Second year, I was like, you know what, you gotta relax a little bit. You're in there too long, so it was like 10 o'clock. And then by fifth year, again, I was in there till way past midnight sometimes. I could not stop painting. If I wasn't in a elective class, I'd go to the studio and paint again. But that's how addicting it was for me.
It's good to, I don't know, I think when it comes to painting, it is just the more time you invest, the better you get. But there is, I think what I've learned is like when you have someone who can teach you shortcuts, or you learn from people who already know what you want to know, you can develop so much quickly, so much at a much faster rate basically. But to really just understand the material of paint and to get used to the volume of paint and the volume of medium you're using and how all of these kind of technical things work, especially with something like oil painting, which is so technical. It's just the more time you invest, the better you get at using that material.
Yeah, I think we focused on acrylic painting for the first 3 years,
Yeah.
or 4 years, and I actually went to all minus myself. It was 4 years of acrylic painting, so all the stuff I mentioned before, composition, color, that was all acrylic. By fourth and fifth, I think it was a choice. And I think I first started in second year actually, so it was a bad idea because I didn't understand acrylic painting at the time. So
Yeah.
I was like, you know, if I experiment well, I might understand it better. But then I did not. I just focused on acrylic for like 4 years. By fifth year, I think it was last summer actually that I started oil painting, and then I haven't stopped oil painting. And now when I do acrylics, I kind of get frustrated because it dries so fast, which is kind of negative, but it's also positive. I don't know.
I had two extremes because I started with acrylics as well. I started painting when I was 16 in sixth form or college. So I did 2 years before I then started oils in my foundation before I started university. So I kind of, I understood painting a little bit through acrylic. I was saying that I started off with 2 years of acrylic painting, and then I moved on to oil painting. But I think oil painting, is so technical. It's kind of like you can do oil painting in so many different kinds of ways. To kind of explore how you can actually use the medium is like a massive thing. And even like after now, how many years have I been using oils? About probably 8 years using oil painting.
8 years?
I feel like I think I've been using oil paints for 8 years now. Yeah, so I'm 26. I started oil painting when I was 18. I still feel like I'm only just starting to get the hang of oil paints. In like
8 years.
Yeah, in like the one way that I'm doing it, which is using liquid, linseed oil or stand oil as my mediums, and then kind of just like I guess building it up and using kind of palette knife or obviously paintbrushes to kind of use the paint. But I feel like I'm just starting to get my head around how to actually use the right amount of paint, build it up properly, retain the kind of certain color and finish that I'd like. And then on top of that, as I always preach about drawing on my channel, I feel like my drawing is just slowly improving as I go along as well, which is really helping things. But working out a process, once you kind of have an idea of the imagery you want to make, all it is working out the process of how to then create that imagery. So it's about that as well.
I feel like I don't know anything now. You said 8 years. I started last summer.
Oh wow, you only started oils last summer. But then again, you said 4 years of acrylic before that.
Yeah.
As in, so you still have that good kind of painting basis. I think when it comes to color mixing, and kind of, I guess that fear of using paint, once you're used to it with acrylics, transitioning into oil, particularly with like color mixing, is quite nice when oil feels fresh. But I think what you need to do is get your head around mediums when it comes to oil paint, when you start using it. I've only recently discovered liquid, which speeds up the drying time of oils, because I was about to say I was on two extremes. Like, I do agree acrylic dries too quickly, but then when I started using oils, especially with linseed oil and stand oil, which extends the drying time of oils, it was so long. I got impatient waiting for the first layer to dry. And then that impatience, sometimes when you work on top of it, when it's kind of wet on wet and you're not really completely comfortable with the material yet, you can easily turn a painting kind of like into something very messy, or the colors will get kind of quite dull or muddy, because they're all mixing together as you're trying to work on several layers.
Yeah, that's what I think. My first series was on fairy tales in South Asia. And those three paintings were like experimental pieces. It was a triptych almost, or like it was. I made a new mistake in all of them. By the time I got to my fourth one, I was like, I made a big 36 by 36. The least I sent you, that was like my fourth painting, where I was like confident enough to, like, you know what, I made enough mistakes. This one's big, so if I make mistakes, I can erase it easily. I kind of got the hang of it.
I'm going because I've got my iPad open next to me with all your pictures of what you've sent me. Because which work did you just refer to? Because I've got you said earlier you spoke about the one with the easel in your studio, right? Did you say that was your first year with the people in the transport, or in?
Yeah.
Is that on transport, or looks like a hotel, or like in a public place basically, right?
I forgot what I sent you.
You've got there's the three figures with the woman like standing like this. Then there's also the large wave painting.
That's second year, not second or third year. That's like the summer of second, third year, when I got that hang of acrylic painting, colors, all that stuff. And the purple leaves. Did I send you purple leaves?
This one's my favorite one. Yeah, like pink and purple with the blue background.
Yes.
Because I love pink and blue as a combination, so this one's like my favorite.
Yeah, I use pink in everything. That's from this year. That's from first semester of this year. That's all oil.
Oh, this is oil paint now.
Yeah, the first two are acrylic. This one's like my oil. Like, I figured it out. Like, this is the palette I use. I figured out my palette because I realized I was putting pink, a little bit of pink in everything. So I was like, you know what? I'll just go all pink because I like that. So
I recently bought.
Right now, I like mostly pink and purple.
I don't know if you're aware of are you aware of the paint brand called Michael Harding? They're very expensive oil painting brand. I only bought like one of the colors because it's so bloody expensive. But I recently there's a color called, the color is called Brilliant Pink, Michael Harding. The pigment is really, really nice. If anyone like ever offers to buy you a gift, whether it's like, I don't know, your birthday or like a holiday or something, and someone's offering to buy you art materials, buy Brilliant Pink, Michael Harding. The pigment is really nice.
I use this Gamblin. Gamblin has a pastel line. I bought those recently. I'm in love with those. Let me show you those. They're like my favorite. So it's these two. Have you seen these? Gamblin? Oh,
I have. I think so I recognize the kind of the branding, but yeah, no, I haven't used the brand before.
Gamblin is really good. It's this line of pastels is like my favorite. Like, I'm more like Winsor Newton, but these are Gamblin things I got just because of the pastels.
Yeah, I've gone Winsor Newton has been day one for me. Like, all of my paints are Winsor & Newton with the exception of like 2 or 3 colors which I tried to find like specific pigments in. So I'm a bit ignorant when it comes to branding of paint, except for the super expensive ones which I've just seen like other people use, and then Winsor & Newton, which has been like my go-to for the kind of the artist quality, because they're kind of like expensive, but expensive affordable if you kind of manage your money and just like save up for the kind of palette that you want. But I guess let's talk a little bit about tutors at your course and your environment, because you sent me the studio pictures that you sent me. Is this your current studio, or was this your studio at your college?
That was the studio place we got for thesis year. So first and second year you have the whole art building is for painting, I guess. So first floor is for first and second years. Second floor is for seniors. No, second floor is for first and second years. Third floor is for seniors. So that's for the thesis classes.
Yeah.
Thesis class, it's limited to get studio space, but there's another room for third years where like everyone works together. And well, it's not really your space. It's not like a room of your space. It's just like a little section divided where like it's just your work.
Yeah.
That was from my thesis year, so my own little corner of like my art stuff. And fifth year, I didn't really get that. Instead, I just worked in the studio all the time, and I had like bigger pieces, so it's like I had a little corner of myself in that space too. But I don't have a studio right now. I'm just working for my makeshift studio. But yeah, that's what that was.
Do you miss the university studios?
I miss them a lot. I miss the studio space and environment there. I could work there for like 12 hours a day and not notice the time. And when I'm working at home, I'm lucky if I get 5 hours.
I think, I guess depending on, I think if you're in a full family of artists, which most of us is not the case, then it will be easier. But I think most people, home can be obviously quite a distraction because you've got the comfort of your own kind of family or entertainment around you, and just like, if your mum comes in and tells you to do something, you can't just say no to your mum. Like, yeah, no, I understand that. So regarding your, I guess, to be honest, I just realized you are the first artist coming on this podcast who has started their own YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's been less than a month since I started. I'm like super new to YouTube. I started my Etsy shop yesterday.
Oh wow,
so
you started Etsy?
Etsy?
Yeah, I know Etsy. Yeah. I've heard good things about Etsy.
I launched it yesterday, so I was like, I did something new before. Since I'm doing all this new stuff right now, I might as well do it all at once and then see where it takes me.
I guess that's the way you learn. Like, I'm sure with all of these different things that we try, like some things will work out, some things won't work out. But it's all a good learning experience, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think this channel is actually motivating me more because I'm making studio vlogs, so I'm constantly filming. So in order for me to have something to film, I need to constantly be painting. And I'm working towards my grad school portfolio. So I'm like, there's a lot of work to get done for grad school.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to get it all done at once. But if I have like a video thing going on, I'm like, you know what? I forget about that. I get into the painting. The vlog is doing its own thing because the camera's on. I'm painting away, and I'm getting two things done at once. So it's kind of motivating me more.
I think what's interesting as well is like when it comes to making content, you tend to work it out as you do it. Like when it came to like me and my YouTube stuff, like I found the camera so intimidating at first, and like there's so much that I just didn't do. But then as you get comfortable with the camera being on, you just like learn to ignore it and just do your thing. And like just get used to what shots work and how to organize. And once you start to edit and think about how to structure, you can then think about, okay, next time I'm filming, I'm going to do this to make this easier and blah, blah, blah. Like it starts to come together as you do it. It's kind of like to get better at a sport, you don't think about running and then you get better at running. You have to run to get better at running, right? I think it's the same when it comes to like content creation.
I feel like in my first video, it's all like shaky and my voice is super quiet. By the second one, I'm like a bit louder. And the studio vlogs, I have two studio vlogs right now, but that's like a lot of thinking about a lot of the content. But
to anyone watching, I'll link your channel in the description below, and I'll put it as on the video as we're talking too. So
that'd be amazing. It's been like 2 weeks. I'm like, how do I do this?
I think what's interesting as well is like I feel like a lot of people when they start to make things, they feel like they have to be like this amazing artist or their painting already has to be like at a certain kind of place. But I can say this as I said, someone who's been oil painting for 8 years, I only feel like I'm just starting to get somewhere after all this time. And I think one thing a lot of people are interested in on the internet is actually following people's journeys. Not so much about seeing these masterpieces with already established kind of celebrity artists that are kind of in their element doing their thing, which is great for inspiration when we want to look up to where we want to be. But I think when you have someone who's quite relatable and is in a similar position to you, it's really interesting to kind of learn as someone develops as an artist, and for someone to then just document that in a kind of entertaining way is very
it's motivating.
beneficial.
It's really helpful. It's helped me. Like, been watching studio vlogs since like first year, and like I keep finding all these new art channels, and just like more motivating. It's like, hey, you're painting, your work is amazing. I want to be where you are, and you just kind of push yourself further because you're like, how do I get there?
Yeah.
And if they can do this, I started a month ago because I was watching all these YouTubers and like around my age. You're the oldest one maybe, but they're all like still in school.
I still think in my head I'm still like 14. I still haven't like accepted adulthood yet.
Yeah, they're all younger than me. So I was like, you know what? If you're doing this and you're so far, why can't I do it? So I just did it. I was told about all the university at least, like, if you think too much, just do it. So I was like, you know what? It's time I actually started following that. So I just did everything all at once.
Do. That's I think that's the way you learn. You do it and you get better, and then you refine, and at the end of the day, like, as I always say, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, you get a mean comment. Okay, you get a good comment. Like, I feel like
that's your video from today.
Yeah, well, I feel like the best way to think about it is just do your thing. It doesn't matter kind of whether you get positive or negative. I think it's if you're building for an audience, it's really good to listen to the audience, but don't let positive or negative get to your head. Like, you should be just working and doing your thing regardless of what people are saying. So but it's good to listen to kind of hear what people want, because then you can kind of start providing more value to those who are kind of watching your stuff.
I agree. You gotta divide the constructive criticism from just criticism.
Yeah.
If you focus on the criticism too much, you're like in this negative headspace. But I feel like, okay, is this actually helpful? If it's not helpful, you like, okay, move on. This constructive criticism, you're like, okay, how do I help? How do I, get better and whatnot?
Yeah, it's kind of like, if the way I kind of see it is, I will still listen to like, if someone just comments, your audio is trash, it's like, you could have said it in a nicer way, but maybe they're saying something that might actually help your channel. Like, okay, maybe I actually do need to kind of go back and redo think about my audio, but like, okay, they could have said it in a nicer way, right?
Did you actually get a comment like that?
To be honest, the comments that I get is like the most recent video I did, where it's kind of like, you're gonna be homeless if you do art, like, you're gonna end up making sandwiches somewhere and blah blah blah, you're gonna be like on the street, because a couple of my videos have blown up a little bit. There are like a few thousand views, so they have a bit more comments, and then I guess they get recommended to like random people, so some of those random people just obviously crap on art students, which, to be honest, I feel like there is a culture or a mindset where you obviously do have, I feel like, generally speaking, the whole academic side of education doesn't really respect the creative route, and there's this idea in kind of schools that if you do take the creative route, you're not taking a financially stable route, and there's not a lot of opportunity for you and blah. I don't know where this kind of comes from, but I feel like in the modern world it kind of exists for everything right now, because okay, before, if you got like maybe a more academic degree, not so much as a creative degree, there were job opportunities for you there to get those jobs and then work your way up, but that doesn't even exist for the so-called academic degrees now. I feel like the only ones who know that they have a job after their degree now are like students, like medical students, where doctors are always going to be needed, or like a physiotherapist or a nurse, or like these kind of degrees where you've got this set profession which will always have a need for in society, and then that's it. Like, you're hired because the demand is there. But for everything else, it's kind of like you're not really sure. And I think it's just about getting your head down, focusing, not listening to people's negativity, and just working on kind of promoting yourself and selling your products, which is your artwork, as a kind of a business person, I guess.
I think it comes from people like Van Gogh died without selling a single painting. I think Gauguin too. And after they died, then they're like, hey, there's this artist here. He makes good art. Might as well look at it. And Gauguin blew up after that. I watched a documentary recently about a collector who went looking around for his paintings because he was fascinated by his art. Like, they're appreciated after we're gone. No one really, that's probably where it came from. The art industry, all of it, really. Unless you're a game maker, that's different. But, yeah.
Okay, I guess before we conclude, would you like to speak about anything more to do with your own practice? Any questions? This is kind of our time to conclude with talk about anything, because I think we've covered a lot. We've covered the structure of your course. We've covered some of the support of the tutors and whatnot, the environment. So now we can just finish with anything that you'd like to speak, whether you'd like to speak a little bit about your own practice.
Okay, my own practice, I was a landscape artist, I guess, for a while when I was still learning. Now I actually discovered my, niche last semester. I was the last painting of last semester. I took an environmental class, and it was a unique environmental piece, a landscape, on something that, really intrigues you. First, I was going to go for, melting ice caps, all that kind of stuff. But I was like, fashion industry, that's also a big topic. I'm into fashion, so I made a big painting on, it was my biggest painting yet. It's like 50 by 62. That's my biggest piece yet.
Inches? 50 by 62 inches.
Inches, yes. That's my biggest piece yet. It's people working on a cotton field. After that, I did more research on the fashion industry, fast fashion, all that stuff. And now I'm working on textiles, so sustainable fashion, using scrap textiles to make good art. I would eventually want to go into the fashion industry, making sustainable clothing. That's like 20 years down the line, maybe, when I'm like, I want to continue making art then too, but I want to go into fashion too. But right now I'm working on so consumerism, fast fashion, all that kind of stuff for grad school. But I feel like that's something I want to continue later on too. I have like a ton of ideas, and there's so much research going on. I have so much to say about so many issues that I can't stop. Like this one assignment got me thinking so much that I think a whole 2 or 3 years on it right now.
My advice to you is, when you're absolutely full of ideas, make sure you have all of them recorded in some place. Because what I found more with myself in the past is sometimes I'll get full of ideas, I'll sleep on them, and then I'll forget them. So always record your thoughts and your ideas.
Yeah, I actually did that. Just you couldn't sleep at night because of your ideas. I had that like 2 weeks ago when my brain just couldn't stop. So I got a journal. I wrote like everything down, like a to-do list, and I'm working my way to the to-do list. But the to-do list keeps getting bigger while I'm working through it. So I did that too.
Prioritize. Work out what's the most important thing from the to-do list, and then prioritize one by one. I think that's the best way to go about it.
What do I say for conclusion?
Yeah, I guess we now have an insight into what education is like in Canada, which is, to be honest, it's quite refreshing hearing that. I guess there is contemporary education on the arts where that does kind of delve into more practical side of things, has some kind of foundation in kind of, I guess, traditional training still exists, which doesn't seem to exist in the UK, from the students that I've spoken to in the UK, whether that be classmates or people on the podcast. But it's been good to hear. You're my first international student for the podcast, so that's your achievement. But I will definitely leave all the links to your social media, your YouTube channel, Instagram as well, right? For your artwork. Is there anything else that you would like to be followed on / put in the description for people to come and find you? Your Etsy shop?
Instagram, my biggest one. Etsy? I just launched it. Should I send it to you? I can send it to you, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess it could develop by the time people kind of watch this, right? So if anyone's interested, they can have a look to see what you're up to.
Right, I'll send you all my socials.
We'll put everything. So I guess that's a thank you to contacting me. Thank you for coming on the podcast, and I wish you all the best for your career and everything. And
Thank you.
feel free
Thank
to
you.
message me any kind of questions you have about oil painting or whatnots. I'll do my best to teach you the tiny little things that I do know. But
Right.
yeah, thanks for coming on, Afifa, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All
Thank
right
you.
then. Thanks for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you.
All right, take care. So I hope today's podcast has been beneficial to all those watching. As I said earlier, you are welcome to feature if you are a graduate yourself from a creative or art degree. So look in the description box for details to contact me. And thank you for watching. Please subscribe to stay in touch for further future episodes. And here is my awkward goodbye.